Welcome to month 8 of the Lead Dad Diaries with Skip Cherryholmes. We've been following Skip now for 8 months as he goes from well-known touring musician to a new career where being a lead dad for his wife Steph, their son, and their daughter is paramount. Last month, we revealed that Skip has joined us as our social media director, which is fantastic. If you like everything he's doing, give me the credit. And if you don't, well, we blame Skip. No, just kidding. We'd never do that, Skip, would we?
No. It's a very much team effort here.
The team effort. We're talking, it's going to run in January, but we're talking at the end of the year. It's a busy month. I know November was a busy month for you. Thanksgiving's behind us. So is Festivus. Hanukkah, Christmas, and New Year's are coming up quick. You had a birthday, Skip. We've got lots going on for 2024. Before I ask you our 5 questions, where do you want to start? Like, what's what's on your mind? It's been quite a whirlwind.
It has been a whirlwind. It's been a whirlwind of a year, 8 months. About it was around this time a year ago. But back in the fall of 22, that I had kind of pushed, made that decision, that commitment to go ahead and start the phase of dialing things back with the band, when I'd finally made the decision there. And I had obviously a lot of conversations that had to be had, and so I'm looking back at where that was, and it's like, yeah, I've made this decision, but there's a lot of obvious uncertainty surrounding it. And just okay, is I know that this is what I want to do. I know it's what I'm supposed to do. There's nothing bad that can become of it, but that doesn't mean I know what I'm getting myself into. And if you'd have asked me where I'm sitting right now is where I thought I would have been sitting a year ago, the answer 100% would be no.
That's interesting. One of my favorite exercises in life, particularly when there's like a transition, is to say like, okay, what was I doing a year ago? What was I doing 5 years ago? Or I sometimes think like if we all hit these doldrums, like, well, what did I think 10 years ago? And like even in a doldrum, I think, okay, this is better than I thought life would have been 10 years ago. And then I always flip it around and say, okay, what's it going to be like in 10 years? Was it kind of an exercise like that for you? I mean, I guess it
Oh,
was impossible,
absolutely.
yeah, to imagine.
And
Yeah.
it always has been. I've always been kind of a reflective personality where I sit, I'm thinking in terms of progress, just in general development. What have I learned? What I'm always looking to absorb knowledge, and I'm looking to educate myself in different ways. And it's like, okay, so if I almost get to the point, I can get too far where I feel like if I haven't made a certain amount of progress in a certain area by the time I'm reflecting on it, then I feel like I've uh, dropped the ball in some way, even though there's 800 other things going on that I may have made progress in. But I've always been kind of a sit back and look at where am I compared to where I have been, or where am I compared to where I want to be. Um, it's a constant thing for me, and it's not an exercise to just not be content with the moment, but it's just recognition. I think it's healthy. I don't really. This is the Lead Dad Diaries is probably the closest thing I've kept to a journal in a long time. There's a lot locked up in here, but uh, the the reflection exercise of kind of looking at where I've been, where I'm at, where I want to be, is more like my own personal journal. It's like the measuring, the markers on the door whenever you measure your kids to see how tall they've gotten. It's the same thing for me personally. So it's constant.
All right, so let's narrow the aperture a bit here and not
Okay.
reflect too far back. Let's just reflect back, a month. First question, as always, what's been the best part of the past month for you?
The past month. Okay, so you may recall that September, definitely October were more relaxed months. I talked about how it was really nice to have what I considered a normal month of regular routine and everything like that. November, was playing catch up. November threw that whole concept out the window and said, okay, we're just going to throw everything to the fire and it's going to be a month of craziness. And I knew that before I got into it. So I did enjoy the, September, October time. But starting right out of the gate, I had a conference at the beginning of the month that I went to, and then a pastoral conference, and then I had a really busy work week to play catch up for the like I guess the second week of November, and then on that one Saturday, uh, the 11th, we celebrated my son's birthday. Or no, sorry, the Friday night we celebrated my son's birthday. Went home, threw suitcases in the car, and drove down to Florida and went to Disney World for 3 days. Spent the 12th, 13th, and 14th down there. Went home, switched suitcases, did a practice at church Wednesday night, left Wednesday night after practice, drove to the studio to record 3 new songs for Sideline. Came home that Friday night, and then the following week led into Thanksgiving and everything, all the holiday stuff there. And then at the end of the month, I was ordained as a pastor, had my birthday, had my parents over to visit, and it was just like bam, bam, bam. So, by the time we crossed over from Halloween into the beginning of November, the month was already over. It was just, you know,
So, was the best part then a complete lack of sleep in the month of November, or was it,
I sleep is underrated or is overrated.
I say that all the
The
time. I love that.
Yeah, I honestly I enjoyed like kind of moving and shaking a little bit though. Going down to Florida was really nice. It was great timing. It was a last minute decision, so it was kind of funny because we already had so much crammed into the month, and then Stephanie and I were talking about my son's birthday and everything. It's like, you know what? Let's just run down 3 days. Go down there. We don't have to pack it full of nonsense. We just go down and have a good time and make some memories and come home. And she's like, well, you've got the studio, that week. Are you going to be good with it? With everything going on. It's like, I mean, that's the part I'm used to is fitting things in. I spend an entire life of working my recreational time around my tour schedule and around being gone. And when you're gone, 3 or 4 days every single week, you're fitting things into the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Sunday evening through Tuesday evening, and then packing up Wednesday and leaving again. So it was very familiar as far as that is concerned. But I really had a blast the whole time, even through, Thanksgiving was great, and having the festive, knowing that the holidays are just like really, present, and, wrapping presents, getting trees and all that kind of stuff. It's just, yeah, I mean, it was great. I didn't really feel the pang. I don't think that it hit me too much until the first week of December that I had lost out on all the sleep and all that, because that's when I finally came down with the crud, so to speak. And I think it was like my body was so stimulated that it was holding everything off until I finally got to the end of that month. And then I just went, you know.
Is that the worst part then? Was that the worst part of the last month, kind of ending with a lingering blah kind of cold type thing?
Yeah, I mean, it was something that, and you know how it is with young kids. They catch it, and then, you know, you kind of pass it around, and everybody's kind of got something going on. And especially now, it seems like, that whole thing is kind of weird now. But um the the uh the illness that everybody else was kind of dealing with over the back half of the month of November, I somehow managed to get away from, and keep away from. I still had to look after everybody and make sure they were comfortable, but I didn't really catch it or catch anything about it until after the month was over. So that wasn't that I would say is probably the worst part of the whole thing was that in the mix there, especially over Thanksgiving and stuff like that, the back half of November was riddled with different, sickness and whatnot. And that wasn't very great. But, it's gonna happen sometimes.
All right, on to that third question of every month. What was your best lead dad moment in the past month?
So I mean, there's so much there. I obviously, my son Aiden turned 6. It's hard to believe, 6 years ago that we were at the hospital, that whole thought process. It's like that ages 1 to 5. It's like 5's a landmark, but once you cross out of 5 into 6, it's like, okay, now you're really on your way, right? It's almost like after you get past the age like 32, then you're officially an old person, and so you're not. It's different. It's 6 is different to
I
me.
can't believe you just said past the age of 32, you're an old person. It reminds me of this friend I had who still have dearest friend from high school, uh, who's always a glass half empty guy, and we got together for a Christmas lunch one year, and he said, "All right, boys, we're 40. We're going on the back nine of life." And I was like, "Whoa, what are you 80? Like 79, 80? We're gonna croak. Why don't we like wait till we get to 45 and then we can start
Right.
the back nine." And so the same thing with like 32. It's all over. He had a good run, Skip. So it's done.
No, I'm more of the glass half full type. And my parents definitely attribute to that. My dad will be 74 on his next birthday. The dude still does like 8 dozen chin ups every day, and like he's ripped. He lives to work out and works out to live, type of a person. And I remember on his 72nd birthday, a couple years ago, I called him and he didn't answer, and he called me back. And I was like, I just want to call, wish you happy birthday. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry I missed your call. I was out surfing. He was down at Daytona Beach surfing at 72 on his birthday. It was like, that's goals right there. He's not, he's not ready to do anything except keep living. So that's kind of how I hope that I push through on that. But anyway, do with all of that with Aiden, and then going down to Florida to celebrate, uh having the just that I'm going to be a kid with my kids is always healthy. You can, it's great to be a lead dad, it's great to be a parent, but one of the true pleasures is when you can find the ability to be a kid with your kids, um and kind of put the lecture hat away, or put the responsibility, not the responsibility hat, there's still responsibilities, but you know what I'm saying. It's like you're not sitting there worried about all of the developmental and all of the structure and all of the schedule and all of the this and that, and you just you throw yourself into the kid pool. And like quite literally, him and I went and jumped into the kiddie swimming pool. And then he was like, this is lame, let's go to the big pool. So we went to the big pool. But that, being able to do that is, I think, a very important part of, being a parent, is being able to be a kid as well. So I enjoyed that. And then but as far as a specific lead dad moment, I think just and I talked about this last month, but being that we had so much of this, uh with celebrating his birthday and all of that, he was so excited to have his sister at the stage where she's at. She's 2.5 and going on 15. Miss Sassy Pants. She's the little sassy thing, but she's 2.5, and he's like, I've got to show you all the cool stuff. I know because I'm a big boy. I've got to show you how it all goes, and getting her ramped up about different stuff, and then whenever we were on our way home from that trip, just kind of listening to him and hearing that lingering glow of how excited he was and how appreciative he was, and how many times he said thank you for taking him and the whole family down there. Was just it grabbed me. It was really great. And then uh again, with kind of the proud dad, lead dad, whatever the moment is, um on Thanksgiving we went over to Stephanie's grandmother's house, and she was sick. Gigi was sick, and she was like kind of keeping to herself in the corner because she wasn't wanting to get around everybody. She was feeling kind of, I think she was just overdid it. Um, but we're in there trying to help prepare Thanksgiving dinner because she just didn't have the energy to and didn't need to be around the food. And he's in there, hey, how can I help? And then he's, getting her water and tissues and this, that, and the other thing, and like just wanting to make sure that she's taken care of. And I think that for me, if you want to talk about just, I don't know, it's it's wonderful when you see that kind of compassion and that kind of behavior out of your young ones, and to see a caring side that shows that they're not just thinking about them, and they're not just thinking about, what can I do, what can I get, and all of that. And um and yeah, it just it made me feel like the lead dad position was not to take credit for that,
Yeah,
but
it's validation though. It's like it's
it
validation.
is
It's like,
validation.
okay, parenting is going okay here.
Parenting's going okay. And yeah, and uh same with when my parents came over. He doesn't see my parents very often. My parents live in Tennessee. I think the last time he had seen them was summer of 22. And his sister was just an infant. And so they came out at the end of the month, and it was just, I mean, it was really cool to have, my son, myself, and my dad all together. And then the kind of a crazy thing that happened while my dad was at my house with my son, and then we got the call that his dad had passed away while we were all together. And I don't know, it was just it was a I'm glad that I was with my dad in that moment, and I'm glad that my son was with my dad in that moment. And because I don't know, I just that was um
I understand. I mean, it seems that dovetails right into. I mean, you and I have talked about this, and now you're part of the company of dads. I mean, was that the most challenging part of the month? I think the story is, your grandfather passes away after you give your first sermon. So the remarkable mix of something, something joyful, and deeply sad. Was that the most challenging part of the past month as a lead dad?
I wouldn't say that was, it was definitely the heaviest. I don't know if I could list it as the most challenging, but the heaviest, full of a cocktail of emotions. Just and for the listeners, the background on that, my grandfather was a pastor his whole life, and I have moved into this new position in my life and taken taken up the pastoral position, and my ordination was set for the end of November. And my very first ordained sermon given the same day, 10 minutes after my sermon was over, was when we got the call that my grandfather passed. And I was there with my dad, and I was there with my son. And it was it was beautiful. It was truly beautiful. And I feel though that with with all of that, it honestly in a way could have made it a little bit easier, um, gentler. Uh my Aiden's so full of joy all the time. He's so full of joy. And so it's hard to be around him and not have a smile on your face. And I think my dad needed that, honestly. Um and so it was tough. And it's beautiful though that we have, that side of the family. My dad had um so many siblings. I think 10. um can't keep up with all of them. uh and they all have uh infinity kids, my cousins, grandkids, great grandkids. There's that side of the family is a huge tree. And getting so many messages from my cousins, my aunts and uncles, and all of that. And it's just, I don't know, it was really amazing for me because uh I don't really get to spend as much time with my dad as I wish that I could. I haven't been able. I moved to North Carolina and started a family, and he lives in Tennessee. And when it was just Stephanie and I, it was easier to visit, and it was easier for them to visit. They've gotten older. They don't travel as much as they used to. I've got kids, and it's harder to travel as much as I would like. But so the fact that out of all the places that my dad could be, and all, even my own siblings, that I got to be the one that was with him, that that's huge for me. It's huge for me. And sorry, I did not know that this was going to go this way. But that's just that's real life. um the 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 challenge, I don't even know if it would be challenging. The I don't know. Sorry. I'm just gonna roll forward. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's cool. Um,
uh
that's yeah, it was powerful. I mean, I was incredibly close to my grandfather, and I remember to this day exactly, where I was, what I was doing, what time it was, when he passed away. And I'll always remember I was at work, and this colleague of mine, Vanessa Vulcan, a woman I did, colleague, did really know her that well, and she looked at me and she knew what had just happened. And I was 27 years old, and I went over to sort of say I've got to leave, and she took one look at me and just gave me a hug. And it was like probably the most memorable hug of my life from somebody who was a colleague, but wasn't it wasn't somebody I would normally have hugged on any
right,
given day. And it was
right.
so I mean, I don't every experience like this is different, but I know when you have that deep connection with a grandparent, and you're lucky enough to maintain that connection into adulthood as you and I both were. I mean, that's tremendous. My dad's dad died when I was 10, and so I don't really I don't really remember him,
Right.
as the way I do my mom's dad, who I was 27, and the things he got to do with me, and I'm sure it was similar to you. So yeah, it's a challenge, and it's an adjustment because they're gone.
Yeah, that's interesting. um and I'm not trying to get into morbidity discussion. It's actually just kind of funny, the timing. So my grandma, um, I called her Mamo. It was Mamo and Papo. And she passed away the February before I found out that I was going to be a father. So she passed away in February, and because of the size of my family, they they postponed the memorial service a month so they would give everybody a chance to come out. And they're doing the same with my grandfather. Had it not been right here at the holidays, it probably would have been here in the next couple of weeks. But I think they're going to hold one for him on in January, middle of January, um, which I will certainly be at. But the with my grandmother, so she passed away in February, and they held the memorial service in March. And so I was already scheduled to perform on a cruise ship the couple of days leading up to before her memorial service. And my wife was with me. And so we're on the cruise ship, and the whole way down to the ship in Florida and the whole trip we were down there, Stephanie was miserable, and she was like sick the whole time. So we got off the ship, and she went to the pharmacy, and a couple hours later in a hotel room down in Florida, we found out that we were going to be parents. And then I had to board a plane the next night and fly to California to be at my grandmother's memorial service around a bunch of family with all of these different emotions going on. Because this is, that first time you could find out that you're going to be a father, it's like a slap in the face. Sometimes you don't even really want to accept it. It's like, no, really, but but I feel that with uh I feel that me being around my family was going to be exciting, but then it was like, well, but you know how it is when it's like you find out, but you don't want to get the word out too soon because yeah. So after the memorial service, we all went over to uncle my uncle Ron's house for a like a reception kind of. Everybody had, I think we went out and grabbed In-N-Out burger for 45 people. um and so we're all over there, and at that point I hadn't told anybody yet. And my grandfather Papa was sitting there eating a burger and just kind of, it'd been a long day for him. He gave his own wife's ceremony, which was heavy. Um, but he's sitting there and he's eating kind of to himself. And so I just decided I was going to tell him. So I sat down and I told him, and he was so excited. And I was like, I don't really want to get it out to many more people right now because I don't know any more about it than you do at this point. Like I found out yesterday, and now I'm here. And so I don't want to get it around, but I wanted to tell you something about your grandfather. You can confide in him. You can, if you had the kind of relationship that I had, you could tell him something and entrust him with it. And you can also trust that if he gave you advice on something, there was no motive except wanting to see the best outcome. There was no, he wasn't much of a lecturer, but he was very much of a, I'm going to calmly tell you what you need to hear here. And but I'm going to do it in a way that lets you know that I I genuinely care about your situation, seeing this come out well for you. And yeah, I mean, it, so I knew he was the person I could go to. So technically, outside of my wife, he was the first person I told. And then, well, I mean, her family knew because we were with her family at the time. And and then yeah, so it's just interesting how all that kind of pulled together.
I mean, our final question is always, any lessons learned in the past month. But listening to this, I mean, we've gone deep this time. It feels like the whole month was a lesson, or a lesson in life, or a way to just sort of appreciate, be grateful, the value of parenting. But I mean, this is your answer, so I don't want to put words in your mouth. But I mean, what comes to mind as the lessons from the past month?
I think so. So the lessons, there's a short term and a long term lesson. Short term lesson is, life is inevitably going to get crazy. This month was a good representation of a combination of things that you planned that all stacked up, and things you didn't plan that all added to what you already had planned. And it's important to not overthink it. Take it a day at a time. Wrestle with your problems as they come to you. Don't take on, you gotta have that endurance. You can't take on things that aren't right in front of you, because you'll wear yourself out before you actually need to exude the energy to solve them, or whatever the case is. um Sub lesson there is, make sure you give your kids lots of breaks when you're in the car for long periods of time. Those several miles driven around with family over the holidays, and you got to make sure your kids can get out and stretch out, or the whole trip becomes a little bit unpleasant. But I do think that it's the bigger lesson that I learned is that, I don't know, I had a whole month of insanely exciting, cram packed beauty and stuff going on. And the event that happened, and everything that happened with my grandfather at the end of the month, made everything that went on with me feel insignificant in a good way. It made me very humbled because of knowing the impact and the legacy that he left on this earth, and realizing that I can really feel like I've got all this. I mean, November was my first full month with the dads too. I joined towards the middle end of October, but November was my first month through. That's very exciting to me. Um, you stack all of it up, and then you look at, not that he would ever have made a comparison like this. I'm the one making the comparison, but I feel honored to have been a part of his legacy, to have been a part of what he left, the impact he left behind. And at that point, it makes me feel like the insanity of November, and all that's gone on, and everything going on with the holidays and whatnot, is it's amazing. But like, there's aspiration there. There's huge aspiration there. And I count myself very lucky to see that.
Skip Cherryholmes, month 3 of Lead Dad Diaries. I always love these
Month 8.
conversations. Month 8. Skip Cherryholmes, month 8 of Lead Dad Diaries. I always love these conversations, but this one here, it hit a different level. It hit a deeper level, and I'm just grateful to know you. Grateful, in being to call each other friends. We've known each other long enough now, that this is special. So thank you for sharing your journey with us again this month, in month 8 of your Lead Dad Diaries.
It's my pleasure, Paul.